Have you ever had that quiet moment? The one where you look at your bank balance or think about your future, and a strange mix of emotions just bubbles up. Hope, anxiety, ambition, fear. Money has a way of doing that, doesn't it? It rarely stays just money. It becomes a story about our security, our freedom, about who we think we are and who we're afraid we might become. You might wonder why something so practical can feel so intensely emotional. Why can two people with the exact same income feel completely different about their lives? Why do some people who have more than enough still feel restless, while others with far less seem calm and content? These questions are at the heart of The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This isn't a book that promises to make you rich quick. Instead, it invites you to understand how money actually works inside the human mind. From the very first page, this book feels different. It doesn't talk down to you, and it doesn't pretend that numbers and spreadsheets alone can explain financial success. Instead, it gently suggests that money is less about complex formulas and more about simple behavior. It's less about your intelligence and more about your temperament. And once you see that, you start to realize how many of your financial decisions were never really about the money at all. Morgan Housel approaches this topic not as some flashy guru, but as a careful observer of human nature. As a writer and financial commentator, he has spent years watching how people behave with their money, especially during moments of stress, boom, and collapse. What seems to have led him to write this book is a simple but powerful insight that personal finance is deeply personal. It's shaped by your unique experiences, your upbringing, your fears, and the stories you've absorbed since you were a child. Housel doesn't argue that people are irrational with money because they're foolish. He suggests something much more compassionate. People make financial decisions based on what they've lived through. Someone who grew up during a recession sees risk completely differently than someone who grew up during a booming market. Someone who has experienced scarcity carries that memory into every single decision they make. These differences don't show up in financial formulas, but they shape our outcomes in profound ways. That's why this book still matters so much, and perhaps matters even more today. We live in a world where financial advice is everywhere, yet financial anxiety is more widespread than ever. We're constantly told what we should do, but rarely help to understand why we struggle so much to actually do it. The Psychology of Money doesn't promise certainty or perfect answers. Instead, it offers perspective. And when it comes to money, perspective can be absolutely life-changing. As the book unfolds, Housel weaves together stories rather than strict rules. He talks about investors, entrepreneurs, ordinary people, and historical figures, not to glorify them, but to reveal the hidden patterns in their behavior. One of the first ideas that really settles in is that luck and risk are always present, even when we can't see them. Success is never just about skill, and failure is never just about stupidity. Our circumstances play a much larger role than we're comfortable admitting. This realization is incredibly freeing. It softens our judgment of ourselves and others. When you stop believing that outcomes perfectly reflect effort or intelligence, you become more humble in your success and more forgiving in your failure. You also become more cautious about blindly copying others, because what worked for someone else might have depended on a unique set of conditions. Lucky break, a specific moment in time that no longer exists. Another central idea is the quiet power of time. Compounding both in our money and in our habits is slow and almost invisible. It doesn't look impressive in the short term, but over decades, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in the universe. The book reminds us that the biggest financial advantage isn't being clever, but simply having endurance. It's the ability to stay in the game long enough for growth to happen. This is where the idea of survival becomes crucial. You don't need to make the absolute best decisions all the time. What you need is to avoid the decisions that take you out of the game entirely. Avoiding catastrophic mistakes matters far more than chasing extraordinary, risky gains. This mindset shifts your focus from maximizing returns to minimizing regret, which is a much healthier way to live. As Housel explores wealth, he draws a subtle but vital distinction between being rich and being wealthy. Being rich is visible. It's the high income, the fancy car, the big house, the status. Wealth, on the other hand, is invisible. Wealth is the money you haven't spent. It's the freedom to choose your own schedule. It's the time you control. It's the options you have that other people don't. This reframing challenges the way so many of us measure success. It suggests that what you do unspend can be far more powerful and valuable than what you do. The book also examines how greed quietly reshapes our expectations. What once felt like more than enough slowly stops feeling like enough. This isn't because people are inherently bad, but because progress changes our reference points. When everyone around you gets a nicer car or a bigger house, standing still can feel like falling behind. The danger lies in confusing this social comparison with genuine need. Throughout the book, there's a steady reminder that happiness and money are connected, but not in the way we're often told. Money can absolutely reduce stress and increase comfort, but beyond a certain point, its power changes. It stops adding joy and starts adding complexity. More choices, more worries, more pressure to maintain a certain lifestyle. Understanding this helps you define what enough means for you. Instead of chasing an ever-moving target set by others, several deep themes run through the book, quietly shaping its powerful message. One of the most important is that behavior trumps knowledge. You don't need to know everything about finance to do well. You just need a few good habits that protect you from your own worst impulses. Habits like patience, consistency, and the ability to sit with boredom when excitement is tempting you to take an unnecessary risk. Another theme is humility. The world is unpredictable. Markets change, careers shift, life intervenes. Accepting that you don't control everything doesn't make you weak. It makes you resilient. You plan for uncertainty not by trying to predict it, but by building a margin of safety into your life. A third theme is storytelling. As humans, we understand the world through stories, and money is no exception. We tell ourselves stories about why something happened, who deserves to be successful, and what the future will look like. These narratives influence our decisions, often more than cold, hard facts. Becoming aware of the stories you believe about money allows you to question them, and if they're not serving you, to rewrite them. Then there is the theme of independence. True financial success, as presented in this book, is the ability to live life on your own terms. It's not about impressing others. It's not about winning a status game. It's about aligning your money with your own values. This kind of independence is quiet. It doesn't need applause. And finally, there is the theme of contentment. This isn't complacency, but a sense of peace. It's the understanding that the purpose of money is not to endlessly accumulate more, but to support a life that feels meaningful and good to you. This is perhaps the book's most human message, that wealth is a tool, not a scorecard. After finishing The Psychology of Money, you're left with a calmer relationship to the whole subject. Money doesn't feel like an enemy or a puzzle you're failing to solve anymore. It feels more like a mirror. It reflects your priorities, your fears, and your hopes. And once you see that, you can start making decisions that feel more aligned with who you are and less like a reaction to outside pressures. In our modern world, filled with noise, frantic advice, and constant comparison, this book offers something rare. It doesn't push you to move faster. It invites you to slow down, to think for the long term, to accept that doing reasonably well for a very long time is far more powerful than doing extraordinarily well for a brief moment. Perhaps the most lasting lesson is this: managing money well has less to do with mastering finance and more to do with mastering yourself, your emotions, your expectations, and your patience. And that kind of mastery isn't flashy, it's quiet. It grows slowly, over time. When you close the book, you might not feel a sudden urge to change everything at once. Instead, you may feel something subtler, a shift in how you think, a new willingness to ask better questions, not how can I get more, but what is enough for me? And in that question, there is clarity, there is freedom, and there is the beginning of a truly healthier relationship with money. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, consider giving this video a like and subscribing for more content that helps us navigate life a little better. See you next time.